Well, let's bring in Michelle Estlund in Miami now, and she's a lawyer specializing in requests made to Interpol. She's also the founder of the Red Notice Law Journal. Michelle, thanks very much for being with us on the show. Now, just explain to us, what is a red notice and how different is it from a normal arrest warrant?
Sure. A red notice is what we might call in the U.S. the equivalent of a BOLO, or be on the lookout. It's a notice that's circulated in 190 of Interpol's member countries that just acts as an alert so that any one of those member countries can be aware that somebody who was wanted is the subject of a crime, an investigation, a conviction, or some sort of court order for which that person is wanted back in another country. It's different from an arrest warrant because each of the member countries of Interpol can decide how they want to react when their law enforcement officials come into contact with somebody who's the subject of a red notice. They might decide to detain them briefly, to question them. They might decide to ignore it, or they might go to the extreme, which is to detain them and eventually move towards extradition proceedings.
Right. Now, so Michelle, let's talk about this particular case now. Why would Egypt then call on Interpol to arrest Mansour? Do the charges actually warrant Interpol being involved?
Well, in Egypt's view, yes. But in the eyes of, I would venture to say, the international community, certainly not. Egyptian officials wanted Mr. Mansour to come back and serve a sentence. Whether that's warranted or not would depend on your viewpoint. I think the viewpoint of the law enforcement officials in Egypt would certainly be that they believe he should face prosecution, which has already occurred, and then serve the sentence. Most of the international community, and my personal opinion, is that he certainly should not have faced that the charges were not even thinly veiled politically motivated charges, and that the proceedings leading up to both the trial and the conviction were laughable, and I don't say that lightly.
Right. Michelle, Interpol rejected Egypt's request, saying that the case actually went against Interpol's rules. What can we read in that? Well,
without knowing more, we can take an educated guess, and that would be that it probably ran afoul of Article 3 of Interpol's Constitution, which is that Interpol is not permitted to become involved in matters that are politically motivated, among other prohibited matters. But in this case, it's safe to say that it was probably because of the politically motivated prohibition. And the reason that we might think that is, in addition to what we know about this case, is that Egypt is unfortunately developing a history of prosecuting journalists and non-governmental organizations that attempt to report on incidents that are occurring in Egypt in an unbiased fashion.
Michelle, it's great getting your insight. We're going to have to leave it there. Thank you so much for joining us. Michelle Estlund there, speaking to us from Miami.